was prepared by him initially for you?
I have said no, and I'll say no again. It was never prepared for me. I did not have any privy to any document regarding the UBS loan. I would rather like him to present one to this commission and say that's Don Polye's name there. Did he present one to this commission? So this is the one I prepared for Don, and this one is for Peter O'Neill. Did he? Well, you could have fabricated one. But I'm telling you, there was no paper I know of in the entire intelligence, the resourcefulness I have in my brain, that there was no paper that was prepared for me to sign. I didn't know about that. I was never told. That could be a completely lie statement.
So this, in your experience, this kind of submission for cabinet approval for a loan from an overseas financial institution for such a large amount of money would come from the relevant minister?
Exactly.
Or would it come from the Prime Minister?
A loan of this magnitude is a big thing. It just does not come from somebody, but it comes through a process in the system. As per the law, it reaches many processes. It comes to the CACC. It comes to the Ministry Economic Committee. It starts with the minister responsible. So forth. That's what should have happened, but never happened. I, as the responsible minister, I did not know about this paper until on the 6th of March 2014, when it sat on the table, I saw it. And I quickly get it. And I was very, well, let me be honest, I was a bit concerned that it did not come through the process, or to me.
And according to Mr. Vele, the submission was prepared and brought under the Loans Overseas Borrowings Act number 2. Would that be the correct statute or the law under which this kind of submission would be brought?
Loans Borrowing Act, the Loans Borrowing Act or any other act, they're all subject to the Parliament's approval by the Constitution.
That's a different subject, but bringing this kind of submission for an overseas loan, would that come under the Loans Overseas Borrowings Act in your experience? Or would it come under some other statute?
I've just said my experience. That act is an act. When it says that I have to put in the budget to operate that act, the Constitution must empower me to do. And what it empowers me to do is I take it to the Parliament. And when the Parliament approves that, then I use the Loans Borrowing Act. That's how I operate.
Okay.
So I'm answering what you're telling me. That's how I have been operating. What I do is anything to do with loans borrowing, I see what the Act says, but I see the most superior law.
Are you familiar with, in your experience as a treasurer, are you familiar with the Loans Overseas Borrowings Act?
I'm very familiar. I've been using that. We've been
You've not been using that statute, is that?
This statute, we have been using that. I mean, the country's been using that. Various treasurers have been using that. And me, I was regulated. I was guided by that Act. It's an Act. It guides me to borrow. But I get my authority from the Parliament as per the Constitution.
That Act says that the relevant minister, who I suppose is the treasurer, has the responsibility of negotiating and concluding the loan. I suppose the National Executive Council also has a role in that. And only after the loan is concluded, then Parliament is only informed of the loan transaction by the minister placing a copy Only a copy of the loan agreement with Parliament, and that's it.
I have never operated like that. What I've been operating is that when you talk about getting a loan, it must be discussed through the cabinet over a process of a time period. And when the cabinet decides to do that, then you have the Loans Borrowing Act there to guide you to get a loan. And you do it through the budget process. You have to put it in the budget and let the appropriation bill, which is the budget itself, pass by the Parliament. It's not just placing it in the Parliament. It has to be in the appropriation bill passed by the Parliament. So what you have done as regulated has been guided under the Loans Act. Now you bring it to the Parliament through your appropriation bill, the budget of the country. And that's it. And when that is passed by the Parliament, then you execute the law. That's a very important requirement.
The Prime Minister then would have wanted you to bring this submission under your hand, under the Loans Officers Borrowings Act, to Cabinet for their approval. And when you did not cooperate, according to him, the name of under whose name the submission was brought was changed to the Prime Minister, and then he signed it off.
That is a lie. Prime Minister would have lied, or former Prime Minister would have lied, or anybody else who spoke out of those lines would have lied, because I told the Commissioner, Chief Commissioner, that the only time that I was aware of the cabinet paper regards this was on the 6th, on the cabinet. I would like to tell the Commission that I am a very conscious person to work with everybody. I wouldn't have gone against if I had been told. I know we would have guided from the very beginning. This particular paper I never saw. I never even had any checking of it even before the cabinet. I have no knowledge about it. The only time I knew was on the 6th.
Okay. Now, after the loan was approved by the National Executive Council, you were asked by the Prime Minister to sign the relevant instruments affecting the decision.
Definitely, he wanted, not directly to me, he wanted the secretary to get me to sign the papers as at the center, but I did not want to sign. I cannot go against my own conscience.
And those instruments would have been issued under the Loans Overseas Borrowings Act or some other legislation?
Yes, they would have been, those instruments would have come, yes, from the Overseas Loans Borrowings Act, yes.
And in your position as Treasurer, you would have issued those instruments?
I couldn't have issued at that time because it had not gone to the Parliament. The budget had been passed. To do that, you have to do budget 2015. 2015.
Assuming Parliament did give the approval.
You cannot do it in 2014. The budget had been passed.
Assuming that was in order, the instruments you would have signed them would have come under that act.
The instruments would have been signed by the Treasurer.
Under that act?
Under that act, yes. 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 I only signed it if I had passed it if the Parliament passed in 2014. I would have definitely gone ahead and signed, because I was the one who prepared the 2014 budget in 2013. But I had not factored in that budget, so how could I go ahead and sign? I couldn't. To sign, you have to do it in 2015.
Anybody, any other minister, or Prime Minister for that matter, would have signed those instruments under the Overseas Loans Overseas Borrowings Act, or only the Treasurer?
The Treasurer, and I think also the Minister of Finance. I think he also signs other instruments too. Yes. there are specific instruments prepared for those ministers responsible by the Act. See, for me to sign in that time, I will have to have added in the budget. I didn't have it in the budget. It's not there. It was a matter of principle and also a matter of moral obligation to the people. I cannot just sign laws that did not reflect in the budget. That breaks the law, but also it destroys the country's economy and is a poor. So for many reasons, I couldn't sign.
We have evidence before the commission that I think it's from the former Prime Minister, that he signed off this submission in his capacity, not as the Prime Minister, but as the trustee of the relevant state-owned enterprise at that time. Then I think it was NCPC, and later it became
You cannot be a trustee and a minister and prime minister at the same time. There's a conflict of interest, Chief Commissioner. If they gave you the evidence, you're being misled. You should correct them. How can they be a trustee on a public thing and then prime minister, a politically a very powerful person, and then come to sign again on a paper instrument? That's wrong. There's a conflict of interest already. When he told you this, you would have told him there's a conflict of interest. A person who is in a power position doing three things at the same time, if he told you that, man, that's a very good evidence he gave you. You can see the problem there right there. You cannot have one person do three things at the same time when the powerful prime minister is frightening.
Those are my questions. Commissioner White, do you have any questions?